Founded in the 1600s, the East India Company was the largest trading company in its time. India produced pepper for the company and later began farming tea, which grew to be one of the most profitable trades. During the 18th century, the East India Company adopted a more military-style approach to gain more power. It was then they moved into Punjab and encountered resistance from Maharaja Ranjit Singh. In the early years of the 19th century, the Sikh Raj of Punjab was transformed and expanded by Maharaja Ranjit Singh. Immediately after the death of Ranjit Singh, the East India Company began increasing its military strength in the regions of Punjab. During their time in India, they acquired various artefacts, including those of Sikh origin. When the company dissolved, many of these artefacts were handed over to Queen Victoria. However, soon after they started work, they found they were running out of space and began distributing the artefacts to various museums across England. Today, we find ourselves at the Royal Armouries Museum here in Leeds, where many of the military items were sent. We'll be meeting with Natasha Bennett, the acting curator here at the museum, who will take us through their open collection as well as giving us an exclusive look at their private collection.
I'm Natasha Bennett. I'm the acting curator of the Oriental collection here at the Royal Armouries Museum based in Leeds. I'm standing in our main Oriental gallery, which houses our Indian collection. We're extremely lucky at the Royal Armouries because we have a very extensive Indian collection, most of which came to the museum in the mid-19th century as a result of two major acquisitions. One of these was a very large gift from the East India Company, and the other was a substantial series of acquisitions made after the 1851 Great Exhibition. During the mid-19th century, the Tower was pursuing a policy of improving the academic rigour and breadth of its displays, so it was extremely concerned over the careful documentation and detail that went into collecting the Indian pieces. A significant influence over these 19th century acquisitions was caused by the British annexation of the Punjab after the Anglo-Sikh Wars of the 1840s. A lot of the material from the Sikh arsenals and armouries ended up being inventoried by British occupying forces and returned to England as part of the East India Company gift and to be put on display for the Great Exhibition. And a lot of this material now resides in the Armouries collection. I'm standing in front of the elephant armour, which is one of the prize pieces in the Royal Armouries collection. It's the largest armour for an animal that's on show in a public museum anywhere in the world. The armour is made from a mail and plate construction, and it's composed of 8 main panels, although unfortunately 2 of the panels on the side of the elephant that's behind me are missing. Armoured elephants were a popular part of armies used throughout the Indian subcontinent. We believe that this armour was manufactured around the beginning of the 17th century, probably in an arsenal in the north of India. I'm standing next to a collection of armour pieces that by tradition have been associated with Maharaja Ranjit Singh. The armour is composed of a cuirass made up of 4 plates, 2 arm defences known as dastana, and a helmet. These pieces were brought back from India by Lord Hardinge, who was Governor-General during the Anglo-Sikh Wars, and they were deposited at the Tower of London by his descendant, Lord Hardinge of Penshurst, in 1955. By tradition, they are associated with Maharaja Ranjit Singh, and although we have no way of proving this association, many believe that they are. By the mid-19th century, the Sikh army had established a phenomenal reputation. Ranjit Singh had built up a very effective military machine that was based around a core of a professional army, armed and trained along European lines. One crucial element was the Sardars, who were mounted warriors famous for their skill with the lance and the sword. Here we have a helmet with a skull that is fashioned to take account of the very recognisable Sikh turban. It's beautifully gilded to show the richness of the armour that the Sardars usually donned before taking to the battlefield, and it's accompanied by this aventail of very fine butted mail links made out of iron and brass. The Sardars prided themselves on their skill with the sword, which was a very traditional weapon, and the Sikhs were well known for making outstanding quality blades. This type of sword is usually referred to as a talwar. It's got a very typical Indo-Muslim style hilt, which was used throughout India, and this very beautiful curved blade, which is fashioned from watered or crucible steel. In addition to their sword and their lance, the Sardars were often equipped with matchlock muskets. There are many paintings from around this time which depict warriors shooting these long guns very effectively from horseback, and these were often used in preference to shorter firearms such as pistols, which, even though they were provided and used on the Sikh battlefield, they weren't anywhere near as prevalent, as far as we're aware, as these traditional long-style matchlocks. This piece is particularly nice because it's still equipped with its original match cord wound around the butt, and it's still got its original vent pricker here, which was used to clean out the touch hole. Part of the equipment that was needed to use these firearms effectively on the battlefield was this belt with its accompanying powder horn and pouches for bullets. These were referred to as kamar. Another very traditional weapon that's associated with Sikh horsemen is this composite bow. These were used across India and indeed across the whole of Asia, and they're constructed from wood, horn and sinew, which gives them amazing strength and elasticity so that they have an enormous range. This particular example is very highly decorated, suggesting that it was probably used as a weapon of pleasure, probably more for hunting. When the Punjab was annexed after the Anglo-Sikh Wars of the 1840s, the British occupying forces took inventories of everything that they found in the Toshkhana, or the Sikh jewel house and treasury, including a detailed list compiled by Dr. Logan of all the arms and armour that he found there. Dr. Logan divided much of this list up into the people who had owned the individual sets of arms and armour. Many of the entries are repeated too often, and the details aren't specific enough for us to be able to identify individual pieces or particular owners. For example, this matchlock musket here came to the Tower as part of the East India Company gift, but matchlock muskets were mentioned too often for us to have any clear idea about whether this belonged to a particular person. However, we do have a near contemporary source of the catalogue that was compiled by the armour historian John Hewitt in 1859, and the way that he lays out his catalogue of the Indian collection suggests very, very strongly that he was copying verbatim from these original documents. And from that, we can deduce that individual pieces, which are clearly identified by their descriptions and tally with the one entry in Logan's inventory and the one entry in Dalhousie's list, suggests that we can trace certain pieces back potentially to their original owners. So this composite bow and this powder flask, for example, we do have pretty strong indications that they may have had personal associations with Maharaja Ranjit Singh. This powder flask may be the one that is specifically listed by Dalhousie as having been made to order in the Toshkhana, specifically for the wedding of Maharaja Ranjit Singh's eldest son, Kuruk Singh, in 1838. Similarly, there is only one painted spear listed in the Logan inventory, and only one painted spear that came over as part of the East India Company gift in 1853. So from that evidence, we think that there is a distinct possibility that this painted spear that I have next to me was the property of Sardar Jawala Singh, who was one of the commanders of the Sikh army and was an adherent of Maharaja Sher Singh. His property was part of the contents of the Toshkhana that was listed by Logan in 1849. Another very prominent group within the Sikh armies of the mid-19th century, who were probably even more famous than the very flamboyant, colourful Sardars, were the Akali Nihangs. These were a group of religious warriors who took the 10th Guru, Guru Gobind Singh's entreaty to carry arms at all times to the absolute extreme. Contemporary British reports suggest repetitively that these warriors were armed to the teeth. If you look at the objects that I have here, you can see that a lot of their equipment was very, very similar to the traditional armour and weaponry that was employed by the Sikh Sardars. But a lot of it was a lot plainer and simpler. It was there to perform a function. For example, they were equipped with similar firearms to the one that I showed earlier for the Sardars. This is a very similar kamar, the belt with the powder flask and the pouches for bullets, but it's in this far more sombre leather. In terms of firearms, contemporary reports suggest that they often had the same long arms, the matchlock muskets slung across their backs. But also within the Sikh army, we do know that occasionally they did use pistols due to the European influence coming in, although they weren't ever particularly widespread or popular. This is a pistol that came in with the East India Company gift in the 1850s, and it's supposed to be associated with the Akalis, but it's very European in form. The Akalis also often carried daggers. This is a katar, which is a form of punch dagger, which is pretty unique to the Indian subcontinent. The hilt has a crossbar here, which is used as a transverse grip. So the user would grip in such a fashion, and this would mean that the entire force of the locked, rigid forearm would be behind the thrust. For this reason, they're often referred to as punch daggers. The most famous piece of equipment that's often associated with the Akalis is the dastabunga, which is the quoit turban or the fortress turban. It's constructed so that it goes over the uncut hair, provides protection on the battlefield against sword thrusts, and it's also a very convenient place to store the weapons that are most associated with this particular religious sect. This particular dastabunga is equipped with 6 chakra. It also has a silver wire which provides it extra security. It helps to keep the fabric in place and provides extra protection. And it also has these small daggers inserted. The other important element of the symbolism is the double-edged sword, or the khanda, which is incorporated up here at the top of the metal ornament. On the table, I also have a larger example of a quoit. This particular dastabunga is one of the pieces that came over as part of the East India Company gift, so we know that it predates 1853.